We are continuing our study in the life of Moses. Last week we talked about that he discovered what God's will was for his life. His only problem was he decided that he was going to do God's will his way as a deliverer. He was going to kill one Egyptian at a time. That was his way of setting the people free. Didn't quite work out so well with him. Last time we saw him, he's running for his life. He's at a well, and he's just sitting there. We're going to go back to that point. But before we do, let me just share a couple things and then we'll get into Moses this morning. You know, as Christians, we are very product-oriented. And the product we like to go for is success. Anybody like success around here? Yeah, success is good. You know, get something going and get it accomplished. That's good. It's always victory. Unfortunately, though, if you'll receive Christ, we tell people if you'll receive Christ, then you're going to live happily ever after. You know, in all my years of knowing the Lord, I have yet to meet one Christian who has lived happily ever after since they came to Christ. Nothing wrong with being product-oriented. Nothing wrong with success. I like it. But there is something wrong. Tighten your seatbelt, would you, right now? But there is something wrong if we leave out the process that includes defeat and also includes failure. Let me say that again. There's something wrong if we leave out of the process that includes times of defeat in our life and also times of failure. I don't know who it ever was who wrote it in the traditional record that a Christian never fails. I'm going to be very straightforward this morning. The person that says that is a liar. They're a liar. Do you have any idea? Do you know that there are many weeks where I feel like I have spent more time missing the mark than hitting it? Have you ever had a week like that? Who says there's something wrong when you fail at times? You fail several times. Let me ask this question. Whoever created a standard of perfection in the first place? Matter of fact, that was the problem I had when I gave my heart to the Lord when I was 12 years of age. I got the idea that people were expecting me to be perfect from that moment on. And to everybody's surprise, I wasn't perfect. And I thought I could not live the Christian life because I wasn't. And one day I decided that I can't do it, and I walked away from the Lord for a period of time. Who says there's something wrong when you fail? Whoever created a standard of perfection for us in the first place? God knew we couldn't do it. That's why He sent Jesus. There's only one who was perfect. There's only one who didn't fail on planet Earth, and that's Jesus. God knew we weren't able to produce perfection. That's why Jesus came. And He brought us into the family of God, and He has given us a position that is perfect in Him. In Him. As a matter of fact, this position we have as a child of God reminds us that our experience will constantly be imperfect. In this body does not lie perfection. What lies here is imperfection. Our experience is going to be constantly imperfection. And if you are waiting to have a perfect week, good luck. You're going to wait in vain, because there's no such thing. Until we learn how to derive lessons from times of failure, we're going to spend a lot of our time increasingly more defeated in our life. So what I want to do this morning, I want to talk about the process. The process that leads to times of victory and success through failure. Times of victory, times of success that comes by way of the times that you and I fail. Because you see, the process is as important, if not more so, than the end product. Let me say that again. The process that we go through in times of failure is as important as the end product is. Let's go to Psalm 19. Let's take a look. The psalmist gives us a little, and then I'm going to switch over to Moses. Psalm 119, 2 verses, verse 67 and verse 71. The psalmist writes, "Before I was afflicted, I went astray. But now I obey your word. It was good for me to be afflicted, so that I might learn your decrees." These verses teach us two things about failure. Psalmist uses the word affliction, but we can use the word failure in its place. When you look at this, you come to the conclusion that the writer has been hurting for some time. He doesn't tell us what the hurt was or how long it lasted. He just tells us it happened. And after failing, he's gone through a time of affliction. And after the affliction has run its course, he looks back and he says, there are two things I can say about my failures. Two things. What are they? One, write this down. Experiencing failure, it promotes an obedient life. Experiencing failure promotes an obedient life. When I go through times of failure, when I go through times of defeat, you know what that does to me? It wants me to get it right. I don't want to fail. I want to be obedient. And the more I slip and fail, the more I want to get in there and I want to be obedient to the Lord. I don't want to let him down. Don't want to disappoint him. When I go through those occasions of walking in the flesh and I come to the end of that ugly scene, there's never a time in which I want to be more pure. I want to be more pure at that time than any other time. I want to get it right. I'm tired of letting him down. I'm tired of disappointing him. You follow me? When I let the Lord down, when I screw up again and again, bring on the next time because I want to get it right this time. Want to get it right. You see, times of failure bring me to a place of wanting to be obedient more than at any other time in my life. So when I keep messing up, experience of failure promotes an obedient life. It does something else too, a second thing. Get this. Experiencing failure in my life prompts me to have a teachable spirit. Experiencing failure prompts a teachable spirit. Let me ask you a question. Do you know people who are listening very closely to God? And they are people that have been broken. They have been bruised. Do you know a Christian that has a very sensitive heart towards God? It is the Christian that bears the marks of having lived a carnal week and now is coming desperately in need of learning from God. You see, failure has given him or her a sensitive, teachable spirit. You know why? Because it's broken the pride barrier within us. How can I be prideful when I am a screw up? When I mess up big time? That's nothing to be proud of. And when that pride is broken in us, we can learn. We can have a teachable spirit when we get rid of that stinking pride. It breaks through that pride barrier. The hardest thing for you and I to do is to face the fact that we have blown it. We have messed up big time. Because you know what we do when our normal modus operandi is when we mess up, we come up with all kinds of defense mechanisms. We try to deny it. No, I didn't do that. That wasn't me. We try to excuse it. Well, you know, it was just a moment of weakness, you know, no big deal. Or we try to rationalize it when we mess up. Or we try to reinterpret it. It's not as bad as it looks. You know what we need to do? We need to come clean and call it what it is. We need to say, I failed. I screwed up. I messed up big time. And it was wrong of me. It was wrong. I shouldn't have said it. I shouldn't have done it. I shouldn't have went there. And once you declare it, then you can learn what God has to teach you in it. Winston Churchill, who in the midst of the German bombing campaign of World War II, he said this to his people in London. He said, "This is not the end. It's not even the beginning of the end, but it is perhaps the end of the beginning." I like that. It's not the end. It's not even the beginning of the end, but it is perhaps the end of the beginning. When we blow it, when we mess up, when you and I fail, folks, it's not the end. It's not the end. It's not even the beginning of the end. But it could be, perhaps, the end of the beginning. What does that mean? It means as you and I begin to interpret failure correctly, we're going to take the first step to maturity, to growing in the Lord. We'll come to the end of the beginning, those first steps within the Christian life, and we'll begin to move on and out in Him. Now, if you want to see how this works in a person's life, let's take a look at Moses. Moses failed big time. We were looking at that last Sunday. You say, "Pastor, I want to tell you, when I fail, it's a beaut." You know what my answer to that? My answer to that is, great. That's fantastic. If we're going to fail, let's do it big time. Because I've discovered that royal flops lead to royal lessons in our life. Let me say that again. Royal flops can lead to royal lessons for us. Moses blew it. He knew what God wanted him to do as far as his will, to deliver the people. But boy, did he go about it all wrong. He blew it big time. And Pharaoh was after him to take his life because of what he had done. And Moses is on the run. He's a fugitive. And we saw him last week sitting by the well at the end, the well of Midian. Folks, this is the most critical time in Moses' life in his first 40 years on this earth. This is a make it, break it time in 40 years for Moses. Let's go to chapter 2 of Exodus, verse 15. He kills the Egyptian. And when Pharaoh heard of this, he tried to kill Moses, but Moses fled from Pharaoh, went to live in Midian, where he sat down by a well. This was the lowest moment in his life right here. You know how he felt? Maybe you felt this way sometime this past week. God, I blew this big time. I blew it. And you sit down and you think to yourself, what a waste I am. You may think, God, I'm never going to be useful to you. Just not going to happen. Or you may have thought this past week, I know, God, you're through with me. You've had enough of me. Or you may have thought, God, why did I do it again? Why again? Ever have that thought? Ever had that feeling lately? We need to learn. We need to learn. You know, sometimes we need to look ahead, but there are also some times when you and I need to look back. Take a good hard look, looking back. I think Moses looked into the reflections of that deep well on that day, and he learned some lessons. He learned some stuff. Let me share a few of them with you. I think at the well, Moses learned a lesson, and it goes like this. Spiritual ends are never achieved by carnal means. Spiritual ends are never achieved by carnal means, by way of the flesh. Spiritual results, church, never take place through fleshly, ungodly means. Where did Moses act in the flesh? Look at verse 11. One day after Moses had grown up, he went out to where his own people were, watched them at their hard labor, and he saw an Egyptian beating a Hebrew, one of his own people. And looking this way and that, here comes the flesh, looking this way and that and seeing nobody watching him, he went and he killed the Egyptian and buried him in a shallow grave in the sand. That's the first act of the flesh right there. God never told him to do that. Get this. You can't sow a fleshly, ungodly seed and stick it in the ground and reap a spiritual plant from it. You cannot plant a fleshly seed in the ground and up come a spiritual plant. You cannot sow a carnal act and reap spiritual fruit from it. It's not going to happen. Let me give you an example. Let's talk about work. Let's talk about your occupation, whatever it is. You cannot manipulate, you cannot connive to get a promotion at work, and then thank God for that promotion. No. So when you get there, don't give God the credit. He doesn't want any of that conniving to get your promotion. Don't give him the credit. I think at times we must say to the Lord, well, thank God for that. And he answers, who? Whoa. Who, me? I never put those thoughts in your head. I didn't pull that off. You did. It's like cheating on a test and getting a good grade. Don't thank God for that A. That A didn't come by way of God. It came from your cheat sheet. There was nothing godly about what you did. Don't thank him for that A. All right, we're after April the 15th. I can say this. You lie on your income tax. And you get money back now. The check is in the mail. Don't thank God for the extra cash you're getting that you can give now to the church. It doesn't cut it with God. That wasn't God. He says to us, that's a carnal means. That leads to a carnal end. I don't have anything to do with that. Moses has the soldier buried in a shallow grave. Well, God, I'm doing your will. Thank you, Lord. God says, don't thank me for that. Don't thank me that the Egyptian is buried in the sand. You did that. That was all by your hand. And it will never result in a spiritual end. What you did was carnal. What you did was of the flesh. You wanted that. That was ungodly from start to finish. That was not of me. You think Moses learned his lesson? I do. You don't see him going out killing Egyptians one by one anymore. What's interesting, when he moved back into the scene the next day after he killed the Egyptian, and he tried to take up leadership, the interesting part was nobody followed him. Nobody wanted to have anything to do with him. As a matter of fact, all of a sudden, everything began to pour down upon him. And he worked so hard to try to keep everything afloat. But that carnal boat did not float. That was not the way God wanted it done. And after he ran away and sat down by the well that afternoon, you know what he discovered? He discovered you can't produce spiritual ends by way of the flesh. That's not the way God works. So Moses stopped trying to do it. It's not just enough that you know my will. You also need to know the process of doing that, my will. And it's not one Egyptian at a time. So stop trying to do it. Which brings me to the second lesson. And I tried to pound this in last week. Timing is as important as action. Timing, the timing of it is as important as action. As a matter of fact, I have to be honest, sometimes I think it's more important when we move in, when we take that first step. You know, you can do the right thing at the wrong time and it will blow up in your face. I've had that happen many times. Remember last week when I was looking for a job and I could go either right or left? And I felt this strong impression in my brain that said, go left, go down to Urethane Fabricate. And I said, nope, I'm going to go right. And I'm going to go for that security job, more hours, more money. It's further away. And I traveled all the way down. And when I saw those giants that worked for that security company, I knew I was dead meat. And I came back to the school and I went left. Went down the red hill, filled out the job application, and boom, 5 minutes later, I had a job. Would have saved myself a lot of gasoline, a lot of time. But you see, I wanted that proud job. You know, where I wore that badge. Learned these lessons back then. That's why when I became a pastor, I told you the other story. How I moved from one church to another. The goal is the Lord wants me to move. It's coming. What do? Jump on the phone, call Brother Bongiorno, and say, hey, Dr. Phil, I want to go to a new church. No. I got the impression. And what did I do? Nothing. Waited. Doesn't matter how long. I waited. And anybody knows me, you know how I hate to wait. Oh, I hate waiting. Then I wait for the Lord to say, all right, get your resume right. Get it up. Bring it up to date. Then, Pastor, what did you do? You put it in the mail? No. What did you do once you got the resume called up? Waited. Put it in the car, and I just waited. How long did you wait? However long it took. Until the Lord said, I want you to mail it now. Then I mailed it. And after that, it was just waiting on Brother B and him sending out my name to whoever the Lord was leading him for. Timing is as important as action, gang. You see, God not only plans what we are to do, He has the time that you do it. A couple of months ago, I got a phone call One of my relatives by marriage is dying in the hospital. Doesn't know the Lord. Herb, you need to get there. You jumped in the car, went up to Altoona? No. I waited. Waited over a week. I asked the Lord for two things. Asked the Lord that no one else would be in that room, and number two, Annie would be awake. Week later, I felt a prompting. Now, go to the hospital. I drove up to Altoona, went up into the room. Nobody was there, and guess who was awake in the bed? Annie. And I led her to the Lord that day. 2 days later, she was gone. She went home to be with the Lord. God not only plans what we are to do, he has the right time that you do it. You see, Moses could look back and he could write over this whole experience. Premature. I got ahead of God. It wasn't the right time. He jumped into leadership. He pushed his way in. He forced his way, and it did not work. Didn't work. Blew up in his face. He looked back and he realized, wow, I've discovered that the timing of my act is just as important as the act itself might have been. Over the years, I've learned something. I've learned a lesson. I'm going to give it to you right now. Hopefully you'll get this. When God is in something, and you're going God's way, it flows. When God is in something, and you do it his way, it flows. It's easy. When it's in the flesh, when it's this, you have to start breaking doors down to get through. But you do it in God's timing. It flows. It's smooth. Because it's not you pounding the doors. It's him opening the doors that you need opened. If you think that in order for a thing to succeed, that you've got to make it happen, you have to force it through, right then and right there, I'm telling you now, you need to back off. You need to jump back. You need to wait on God's timing. Let me just give you a simple little example. If you want to, you're at work and you want to get people together at the lunch break for a time of reading the scriptures together. Don't force it. Lay it before the Lord and let him open up the doors. If he is in it, it is remarkable how his timing will make it easy. It will just flow. It will just flow. Timing is as important as the action, if not even more so. And that's where wisdom comes in. This is where wisdom comes in. What's the difference between wisdom and knowledge? Knowledge says this. Knowledge tells me what to do. Wisdom tells me when to do it. Do you get it? Knowledge tells me what to do. Wisdom tells me how to do it, when to do it. Wisdom tells me how to carry it out. And the longer I live, the more I believe those words. It's an old saying, and the saying goes like this: one blow struck when the time is right is worth 1,000 strikes in premature eagerness. Folks, God is able to do everything. He is able to pull it off. But he's going to do it in his time. Not mine. Not yours. His timing. His timing. Do you ever feel like God is awfully slow? You ever feel that way, that God is slow? Don't you say, come on, God, let's get going. Wake up, God, I've been talking to you. I've been talking to you about this thing for weeks. Let's go. Go. Come on. The problem isn't that God is too slow. It's that you and I are going too fast. It's not that he's too slow. We're just going too fast. My favorite illustration of this is, have you ever seen a big dog on a leash? And the owner has him going out for a walk. And the dog is, and he's up on his back feet, slobber coming out, you know. And the owner's, and he's holding on for dear life. The picture's up there, you getting it now? Was the guy walking too slow? Or was a dog running too fast? The dog is going crazy. Folks, that's just like you and me. God has given us his will, his plan. And we're on the leash going. And God's saying, come back, come back, come back, come back. Slow down. We're pulling on the leash. God says, stay with me. Stay with me. Come on. Timing is just as important as action. Stop running. Slow down. Go at God's pace. Go at God's pace. Moses was too strong. That day watching that Egyptian beat that Hebrew. He was too strong. Moses had to discover out of weakness what becomes strong. He had to learn that waiting, and I'm still working on this one, waiting isn't a sign of weakness. It's a sign of strength. It's a sign of strength. If you haven't learned that, you are spinning your gears, working up all kinds of anxiety because all things aren't happening as fast as we want them to be. I have news for you. It never will. It never will. Which brings me to the last lesson, and I'm going to wrap it up. He's coming home, I hear it. Hiding the wrong doesn't erase the wrong. It only postpones the discovery. Hiding the wrong doesn't erase the wrong. It only postpones the discovery a little bit further down the road. What did Moses do? He hid the dead Egyptian's body in the sand. Did it stop its discovery? No. It just took a little bit longer to find the body. The deed got found out. Verse 13. The next day he went out and saw two Hebrews fighting. He asked the one in the wrong, "Why are you hitting your fellow Hebrew?" The man said, "Who made you ruler and judge over us? Are you thinking of killing me as you killed the Egyptian?" So much for the shallow grave. Then Moses was afraid and he thought, "Oh man, what I did must have become known." You see, Moses learned that he could not hide a thing. He could not hide anything from that moment. He learned that it pays to be transparent. Live life in the open. It frees you. Trump is starting to learn that. The previous administration hid a lot from us that we are just starting to find out. And so that the American citizens would know, Trump has press conferences out in the open. He brings people into the West Wing, and they can ask him any questions they want. And he's very transparent. He'll bring people in from another country, a president, a premier, whatever, and they'll sit down, and he'll talk to them right there with the cameras on. That way, the legacy media can't make it up because he's transparent. You watch the meeting take place. And sometimes those meetings get a little ugly. But at least we now know what's being said because we see it and we hear it ourselves. Moses learned to be transparent as well. Doesn't pay to hide anything. And folks, let's be honest. We've been hiding since the time of Adam's sin. We've been hiding the consequences of this. We hide from ourselves the truth about ourselves. And we tell ourselves we're not as bad as we think. No, we're pretty good. We're not as bad as that one next door. That's for sure. You know what else we do? We not only tried to hide the truth from ourselves, we also like to hide the truth from others. Oh, man, I don't want no one to learn that Pastor Herb does this. Or Pastor Herb, no, we're not going down that road. We don't want to be found out. So what do? We just try to hide that part of ourselves. Why do we do that? Because we have to succeed. So we put on this front, this face. We have to succeed. Says who? Says who we have to succeed all the time? You know, when I was growing up, we used to have testimony time on Sunday nights. Everybody remember testimony time? And everybody would get up and testify about all the wonderful things God is doing in their life. Someday I'm going to change it. You know what I'm going to do? You'll probably not want to be here that Sunday. But here's what I would like to do. I think it would be delightful to have a testimony time of sharing failures. Sharing when we blew it up. When we lost it. Wouldn't that be different? Ever been in a testimony meeting where everybody was on cloud 100 and you were in tunnel 50? Way down. Huh? And you sat there and you go, how do they live like that? If only I had that kind of experience. Everyone is talking about soaring into the heavens, and you're down there smothered in the gutter. Been to those services. You know what? Let's see the other side. Tell me where you nosedived. Tell me where you crashed and burned. Tell me about that experience. No. We want to hide that. We don't want anybody to see that. Why not? Why not? Because we're too proud. We're too stinking proud. Basically, we're dishonest at heart. Tell you the truth. We're afraid to say, this was a lousy week. It really was. I had such a lousy week. And because we're afraid to voice that, we don't know how to handle failures. Don't know how to deal with it. We fail and we say, God, I failed so bad. God, I failed terribly. Look at what I've done. And you know what we expect from God? Rejection. Rejection. But this is what happens when we've had a lousy week. God our Father comes to us and he says, yeah, I saw that. Yeah, I saw that. But I want you to know something. I accept you just the way you are. And I acknowledge that what you did, what you said, how you acted was wrong. And you're done now. So let's learn from it. Let's grow from it. And let's move on. Let's move on. As a matter of fact, gang, you never ever read about Moses covering up anything after this. It's not there. It's not there. What am I trying to say? Let's learn from our failures. Let's learn. Not be afraid of them. Not to make excuses about it. Let's learn from it. Let's apply these principles. And then let's move on. Let's move on. Let's pray. Father,